Title: At the corporate party, my cheating wife's boss confronted me. From now on, she's mine to control, and you'll support her and your worthless life. Resist, and I'll leave you with nothing. My revenge was immediate and merciless. The night of the corporate party was meant to be a celebration. My wife, Annalisa, had been giddy about it for weeks. She'd gone all out, splurging on a new emerald gown, booking a professional stylist, and even asking me to wear my sharpest suit. She wanted us to look like the perfect couple, the kind everyone envied. But as we stepped into the dazzling ballroom of the St. Gallen Grand Hotel, I could feel the pretense hanging between us like a thread about to snap. Over the past 6 months, Annalisa had grown distant. Her laughter felt hollow, her late-night work meetings too frequent. I'd started noticing whispers and sidelong glances at her office functions. And then there was him. Ulrich von Hauser, her CEO. Ulrich was a man who carried himself like he owned the world, which, in many ways, he did. He had the sharpest suits, the flashiest cars, and an ego to match. His presence loomed over the party, and every time he passed, Annalisa's gaze flicked toward him like a moth drawn to flame. It didn't take a detective to piece together what was happening, but I hadn't confronted her yet. I needed proof. And tonight, I planned to get it. As the night progressed, I found myself nursing a whiskey at the bar, my eyes following Annalisa across the room. She flitted between groups of colleagues, her smile bright but her movements jittery. Ulrich, meanwhile, seemed to always be nearby, his hand brushing hers too casually, his whispers drawing smiles too easily. Then came the moment that sealed my suspicions. Annalisa excused herself to the powder room, and Ulrich followed not long after. My pulse quickened. Leaving my drink on the counter, I quietly tailed them down the hallway. They didn't go to the restroom. Instead, they slipped into a private lounge, the door clicking shut behind them. I pressed my ear against the wood, my stomach churning as I caught fragments of their conversation. "Tired of hiding," Ulrich said, his voice low but smug. "When are you going to tell him?" Annalisa hesitated. "Ulrich, you don't understand. Julian isn't stupid. He'll do nothing." Ulrich interrupted, his tone dripping with contempt. "Men like him are spineless. Besides, once I'm through with him, he won't have the means to fight back." My hands balled into fists, but I forced myself to stay quiet. This wasn't the moment to confront them. Not yet. When they finally emerged from the lounge, Annalisa looked flushed, her gaze darting nervously around the room. Ulrich, on the other hand, looked pleased, like a predator confident in his kill. I returned to the bar, acting as though I hadn't moved, but my mind was racing. Later that evening, as the party began to wind down, Ulrich approached me. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm and possessive. "Julian, isn't it?" he said, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Annalisa speaks highly of you, says you've been supportive of her career." The condescension in his tone was unmistakable. "Of course," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Her success means everything to me." "Well," he continued, leaning in so only I could hear, "you'll need to keep that attitude, because from now on, she's mine to control. You'll support her and your worthless life, or I'll make sure you're left with nothing." I stared at him, stunned by his audacity. Before I could respond, he patted my shoulder again and walked off, his laugh echoing in my ears. That night, as Annalisa slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying Ulrich's words over and over. He thought he could take everything from me, my wife, my dignity, my livelihood, but he underestimated me. If he wanted a fight, I would give him one, and I would win. The next morning, I began gathering my weapons. I reached out to old friends in the finance world, people who owed me favors. Ulrich's reputation was pristine on the surface, but no one rises to his level without skeletons in their closet. My contacts didn't disappoint. Within days, I had a dossier of his shady dealings, offshore accounts, falsified financial reports, and worst of all, a hush money payout to cover up an affair with another employee. Next, I turned my attention to Annalisa. I tracked her phone, planted a discreet recording device in her car, and monitored her emails. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for: explicit messages between her and Ulrich, detailing their plans to be together. Each word was like a dagger to the heart, but I didn't let the pain cloud my judgment. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about justice. With the evidence in hand, I set my plan into motion. Ulrich was hosting a high-profile investor gala the following weekend, an event that would determine the future of his company. It was the perfect stage for his downfall. I anonymously tipped off a financial journalist about Ulrich's offshore accounts and falsified reports, providing them with the documentation they needed to blow the story wide open. At the same time, I sent copies of the affair messages to the company's board of directors, ensuring that his personal and professional lives would collide in spectacular fashion. On the night of the gala, I arrived with Annalisa, playing the part of the supportive husband. She seemed on edge, her eyes flitting toward Ulrich every few minutes, but she didn't suspect a thing. Midway through the evening, as Ulrich was delivering a speech about integrity and innovation, the room's energy shifted. Phones buzzed with breaking news alerts, and whispers spread like wildfire. The journalist I'd tipped off had published their exposé, complete with damning evidence of Ulrich's financial misconduct. The board members, who were in attendance, immediately convened an emergency meeting, leaving Ulrich floundering on stage. But I wasn't done yet. As the room descended into chaos, I turned to Annalisa. "You might want to check your email," I said, my voice calm. She frowned, pulling out her phone. Her face went pale as she read the messages I had forwarded to her, her own incriminating words to Ulrich. "Julian, she stammered, but I cut her off. "Save it," I said coldly. "You've made your choice, Annalisa. Now you can live with the consequences." By the end of the night, Ulrich's career was in ruins. The board voted to remove him as CEO, and the police were waiting to question him about his offshore accounts. Annalisa, caught in the fallout, was fired for her role in the scandal. Her dreams of a life with Ulrich evaporated before her eyes. I filed for divorce the next day, ensuring that I retained the majority of our assets. Annalisa begged for forgiveness, but I was done. She and Ulrich had tried to destroy me, but in the end, they were the ones left with nothing. As I walked away from the courthouse, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. Justice had been served, and I had reclaimed my life. Looking back, I realized that Ulrich's arrogance had been his greatest weakness. He thought he could control me, but he forgot one simple truth. A man who has nothing left to lose is the most dangerous of all. Thank you for being a part of this story with me. If it moved you, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Lauren's story. I've noticed many of you who enjoy these stories aren't subscribed yet. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel, you're becoming part of a community that values deep, meaningful storytelling. Let's continue exploring these heartfelt journeys together. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you won't miss our next story.